Hello. In Discourse and Culture, we're gonna talk about discourse analysis, coherence, background knowledge, cultural schemata, and cross-cultural pragmatics. In the introduction, the author George Yude explains that when speakers gain the floor, that is, when they gain or retain the right to speak, they have to organize their ideas in a coherent way. Organizing ideas in a coherent way means that you have to organize the ideas in a way that listeners or readers will be able to understand. But it's not so simple. So, some people prefer to write before speaking. However, writing does not provide immediate interactive feedback. That is, the writer does not receive return of what he or she said immediately. And writing asks more mechanism for the organization of texts. It's because when you are speaking, you are free to speak without thinking about the structure. The thoughts almost never stop to think about it, and when it's necessary, the speaker usually say words such as oh, well, so, that is. Relying on explicit structural mechanism for organization of their texts, speakers and writers use interpersonal, textual, and ideational functions of language. Interpersonal function of language refers to social interaction, the act of speaking and listening to each other. It's the communication, in fact. Textual function refers to the appropriate structure of text that happens when the person writes it, coherent and cohesion text. And ideational function represents the thoughts and experience in a coherent way. Investigating the language and its function, we're going to study about discourse analysis. Well, discourse analysis is the study of the form and function of what is said or written in a discourse. It covers not only narrow focus, but also dominant ideology, linguistic issues, pragmatic perspective, and pragmatics of discourse. Discourse analysis studies how words such as oh or well are used in casual talk, beyond this its narrow focus. In investigating dominant ideology, they study representation of educational and political practices and its influence in a discourse. In linguistic issues, the discourse analysis focuses on the record, spoken or written, of the process by which language is used. In pragmatic perspective, the focus is on unsaid or unwritten discourse in order to do the pragmatics of discourse. There is the study of what the speaker or writer has in mind. In this way, the discourse analysis studies not only what is said or written, but also the intention of the speaker or writer, the background knowledge, the beliefs and expectations of them. So, pragmatics of discourse deals to psychological concepts. In coherence, the author explains that coherence is the way you speak or write something making sense. That is, when you speak or write something that is able to be understood, you say it's a coherent speech or text. To be coherent, the spoken or written discourse needs to be a normal experience by each individual. It has emphasis on familiarity and knowledge. When you say or write a coherent discourse, you active the cultural knowledge of each person involved in the discourse, and they provide an interpretation, construct scenarios. For example, when you read the newspaper headline, "Man robs hotel with sandwich," you create an interpretation. Maybe the man used the sandwich as it was a gun, but you can also imagine that the thief was eating a sandwich during the crime. The interpretation of this headline depends on your background knowledge. It depends on your own experience. That's why knowing for whom you are speaking or writing discourse is so important.
Hello! Let's talk about background knowledge. This is specifically knowledge that we have is that pre-existence. Our ability to speak and write is based on the structure of this knowledge. That structure functions as a familiar pattern of previous experience. We use it to interpret new experience that is We always have example of life experience for our family in order to solve the issues in our life. When we hear about something, our mind realizes everything related to the subject because of the world knowledge that we have. It functions as a frame. For example, when we talk about an apartment, we know that excellent bedroom, kitchen, etc. This is what our mind realizes, because this has pure knowledge of what size an apartment is. That we can also address the cultural schemata. What is it? Cultural schemata. Well, when the script is in an individual collides with another script of environment because of its cultural diversity. For example, a Japanese or Moroccan restaurant not use chair, but use cushions. The individual envisioned a restaurant with a chair, table, waiter, etc. And when it reached the place, realized that the environment is totally different from that we imagined. Well, other example cited in the text was the Vietnamese. They don't have habit of the celebrate Easter, and when they will job in the place, the cultural schemata is activated, and she think that will be fired from work because she is doing a wrong to reading this knowledge. That's it.
Good afternoon. Let's talk about cross-cultural pragmatics. What is cross-cultural pragmatics? In fact, it is the study of difference in expectations based on cultural schema. It's part of a broad area of investigation generally known as cross-cultural pragmatics. In this study, we saw many concepts and terminology that may provide a basic analytic framework, but they can differ from the English language examples presented. However, the powerful role of silencing within the normal conversational practice of many cultures and the discussion of a socially prescribed as right to talk wasn't explored. In many cultures, the right to talk is recognized as the structural basis of how interaction proceeds. When it was considered, types of speech acts wasn't included any observations on the substantial difference that can exist cross-culturally in interpreting concepts like complimenting, thanking, or apologizing. Indeed, it is unlikely that the division on cultural group makes between and two social actions such as thanking or apologizing will be matched precisely within another culture. The study of these different cultural ways of speaking is sometimes called contrastive pragmatics. When the investigation focuses more specifically on the communicative behavior of non-receiving speakers attempting to communicate in their second language. It is described as interlanguage pragmatics. Such studies increasingly reveal that we all speak with what might be called a pragmatic accent, that is, aspects of our talk that indicate what we assume is communicated without being said. That's it.
Oral practice activities. Bibliography. Year George Pragmatics, Oxford. Presented by Alessandra Cristina Rodrigues e Silva, Glaucilane de Medeiros Tomás, and Lady Belém.